Growing up in the 50s and 60s, the beach, it would have shells and seagrass, but there was never any plastic litter as such, because there was no plastic in our environment. There was no plastic in the things we bought. They were either glass or metal or paper.
Plastic set out to save the environment in many ways, as a replacement for ivory and tortoiseshell combs, buttons, and to save the trees from being turned into paper shopping bags. Plastic is now one of the world's worst pollutants and one of the ocean's biggest threats. It is estimated that 820 million pieces of mainly plastic litter flow through stormwater drains into the bays of Port Phillip from the Maribyrnong and Yarra rivers each year. Organisations around Port Phillip are actively working to reduce litter. Friends groups, community organisations and not-for-profits reporting their collective data to local councils and the state government to find a solution to the problem.
Port Phillip Bay is a really unique environment. It's a fairly closed system. And when we look at litter in Port Phillip Bay, it's primarily coming from the catchment. It's not like other areas where we get influenced by litter maybe from other countries. So for a research point of view, it's a very interesting case study, because we should be able to address litter in Port Phillip Bay because it's our rubbish.
Well, definitely the litter starts on the streets, and that's really where we need to shift our consciousness, because there's been a lot of focus on the marine environment and the impact of plastics, but if it's coming from the streets, that's where the solutions are.
Just like everything else within a catchment, litter is going to end up going through our stormwater system. So anything that's on the streets is going to go down the gutters that you see on the side of the roads, and will end up going through the stormwater systems into the rivers and creeks. And so we see a lot of that, particularly when you have flooding. You can see along the tree lines that there's leftover litter plastic bags that are sort of hanging there. And it's basically a superhighway from that stage to go down those waterways and straight into Port Phillip Bay. And we see a lot of that, particularly when groups are out there like Beach Patrol cleaning up along the shoreline. There's lots of litter that would have originated even really high up in the catchment.
Beach Patrol as an organisation, we really have two roles. The most obvious one is that we encourage people to come down to the beach to an organised clean for 1 hour a month to come and pick up litter, and it's mainly plastic litter that you'd see lying on the beaches. It normally washes in on the tide. So that's the most obvious thing we do, but a bigger thing is trying to reach out to the community to make the larger community at large aware of the plastic issue problem, and hopefully we can get them to stop using so much disposable plastic and such.
The reason I'm so passionate about cleaning up our environment and picking up plastic off beaches is because of the immense harm it does to our wildlife. The innocent beings that share the planet with us that have to put up with being entangled, ingesting plastic that causes them harm and death, and I just don't think it's right. We don't have a right to do that to other beings. And it really touches my heart that it's a mess that we've created, and it's one that we need to clean up.
So we find in Beach Patrol that the local people are the people that have the most interest in keeping their beaches clean. Nobody wants to come down to a beach to enjoy a nice sunny day on the beach and be surrounded by plastic. So the local peoples are the ones that have the energy to get their beaches clean.
What prompted you to actually get involved and start the program?
Well, in our local community, we would normally come down to the beach every so few weeks in summer, and we'd collect so much plastic off the beach, and I thought one day that why not start a beach patrol and see how many people we can get and how much plastic we can collect.
If we have a quick look around here, probably prime example is that
straw,
item.
yeah.
You got the straw. Can I grab that?
Yeah. We find a lot of these when we're doing our beach patrol.
There's the straws.
There, yeah.
And it's kind of crazy because it's an item that we don't really need.
Yeah.
Like we can just drink out of a cup, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's escaping so much into the environment as well.
Yeah.
You know, for us, that's why it's really important to be collecting the data, is to be able to understand exactly where it might have come from.
Yeah.
Because in different places, it could be there for different reasons.
Yeah.
So it helps us with finding those solutions. So, Cassidy, did you hear we have just released an app to be able to collect data?
Yeah, we use it for when we do our beach patrols.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Great to see. We found it's a really good tool because we have new technology and a lot of people are familiar with apps now, and it goes straight into the database, so we've been pretty excited by that.
Yeah.
So if we have a look at some of the stuff that we've found just on the beach here, pretty diverse sourcing of some of this stuff. So.
Glow stick.
Glow sticks, yeah. So a lot of them are used in the recreational fishing industry, these ones, but also different designs we find in the longline industry, so commercial fisheries as well.
Yeah.
What else have we got here?
We have the big plastic bits.
Yeah, and I guess that this, there's a couple of these smaller bits as well, and this really shows the legacy of plastic once it gets into the environment. Today this piece is one piece, but tomorrow it could be 10 pieces or 100 pieces, and it just continually breaks up into smaller and smaller fragments until we can't actually even see it. So microplastics are becoming a more and more researched topic, I guess. Back when we first started doing cleanups, nobody was even talking about microplastics, but the concern is that every one of these little bits of plastic have toxins in them. Some of them make the plastic hard, some make it soft, and when fish are ingesting this plastic, they're actually absorbing the toxins in the tissue as well. And we're at the top of the food chain, so research is still trying to figure out how much of an impact that's going to have on human health.
Yeah.
Well, we're actually doing studies on beaches where we're monitoring beaches for microplastics every 3 months at 6 sites around the bay. And each of those sites relates to a waterway. And we also are partnering with Scouts Victoria to do audits on streets in all catchments around the bay over the next 2 years so that we can actually document where stuff that's getting into the bay is coming from.
As consumers, we need to understand that plastic is actually a really valuable product, but we're using it for things we really shouldn't. So we need to start transitioning away from those single-use items, from making them from plastic into making them something that's actually a little bit more environmentally friendly and isn't actually going to last in the environment forever. We have alternatives. We don't need to be using single-use plastic for those items.
The Caring for Our Bays program is in place to raise the profile of Port Phillip and Corio Bay, to get people connected with their front yard, the beautiful water, and all the inhabitants that are there and how litter and their actions impact on our waterways. Volunteers are essential to this program. We can only do so much as organisations or individuals, but having the whole community behind us and being an advocate basically means that it empowers them to start action.
I feel like I'm not only helping my land, my ocean, my bay, my people, but also collecting evidence that may lead to really great changes in the future.
The most successful part of this project, I believe, is that we're able to identify a problem and then look at solutions and set about implementing them through our partnerships with the community and land managers. Now we've got a trend that's showing decreased litter at sites where it was a problem, and that's creating that behaviour change, and I'm confident that'll continue.
It's so sad looking at all of this and knowing that it's come from us.
Absolutely, every single piece of this plastic has passed through someone's hands.
Yeah.
And we just need to be a little bit more conscious of where we're passing this stuff to when it leaves our hands.
Yeah.
If all we do is clean up, that's all we're ever going to do. So while it will actually remove the immediate threat that that litter item poses to the environment, if we go back down to the beach in another 6 hours, the tide can wash up more litter. So it will be a never-ending job. If we take the opportunity to collect data while we're cleaning up, then we start to have evidence that enables us to have conversation with community, industry and government and identify what needs to actually change to prevent it.
How I feel about going to pick up other people's rubbish is probably a bit disappointed because people have been lazy, just dumping the rubbish instead of actually taking the time to go to the bin, go to a bin or somewhere where you can put your rubbish and either recycle it or dispose of it properly. It just makes me feel disgusted just to see that other rubbish has been there and it's been put there in the first place instead of it just being in the proper place.